It has been reported that on March 1st, 2024, Akira Toriyama passed away. For those who may not know, Akira Toriyama was the creator of Dragon Ball, Sandland, Dr. Slump, and many other projects. He is also the person who designed the characters and monster designs for Dragon Quest. He absolutely revolutionized media as we know it, not just the manga and anime industry with his works, but all media has been inspired by the likes of Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, and so on. He has, without a doubt, inspired many manga artists who would not be where they are today if it weren't for him. The likes of Kishimoto, the author of Naruto, and Eiichiro Oda, the author of One Piece, as examples. But manga and anime, video games, media in general would not be where it is today without him. He is undoubtedly one of the most legendary names in all of fiction. And his passing has shaken the world. It is blown up every social media platform, has gotten so much attention, and seemingly came out of nowhere for a lot of us. And so, while not like the biggest fan of his works comparative to others, I can't deny that without him, some of my favorites would never have existed. One Piece would not be here. And so, I have to give the credit where it's due. I have even cosplayed Aurelie from Dr. Slump, hence the hat. And while not the biggest fan, I did grow up with Dragon Ball. And I do have a deep appreciation for it. So today, in honor of the late Akira Toriyama, I have decided I am going to rank all of the arcs of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Super. This also includes movies and all in it, but I'm only going to count the show stuff. Because while Toriyama might have had a hand in working on the movies and everything, I want to focus on the main shows of this franchise. For better or for worse, no matter what you think of them, and just share my personal thoughts. In honor of a man who just absolutely revolutionized the world. And I'm going to be, in all respectfulness, honest here. I'm going to be honest with my opinions, and if there's arcs I was not a fan of comparative to the others, I will acknowledge that. Because I feel it would be disrespectful to Toriyama to not air out my issues. To act like it was perfect, I feel is more disrespectful than just explaining that something just didn't work for you. And that goes for any piece of media. So again, in honor of the now late Akira Toriyama, let's get to this ranking. So, all the tiers on here were already made. I didn't make any of these. As you can see, it's just S through D. Or didn't watch, read. But again, I'm counting all of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Super here. And I've seen most of it. Like, the later arcs of Super, I haven't seen as much of, and I didn't, like, actively watch, but I've seen most of it still. I have seen all of Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT multiple times. So, pretty much everything will be ranked here, and I am going to be ranking this based on like Dragon Ball scale. So I'm not going to be like comparing it to how good this would be compared to One Piece or Naruto or any other series. Just purely on the scale of Dragon Ball. Like, what is the best arcs of Dragon Ball? What are the, in my opinion, least of those? Just based on that scale. So, we start off, these I think are in complete release order. We start off with the Emperor Pilaf saga. Emperor Pilaf saga I would put kind of in C, which I'm considering C here to be kind of the meh tier. D I would consider bad. I'm not going to have an F here because I don't think anything's going to be quite that like terrible. But yeah, D would be bad, C would be meh, B is good, A is great, and S is like just the peak of Dragon Ball. So I would consider Emperor Pilaf saga to be C. Just meh. Just it's there, it exists, it started the series off. That's pretty much what I can say about it. I'm going to put the Tournament Saga after that in B. Tournaments are kind of Dragon Ball's bread and butter. It is what they are best at. And I would argue that the original Tournament Saga in Dragon Ball, yeah, I'd give it a B. I think it's good, but not great. The Red Ribbon Army Saga, though, is actually one of my early favorites from the original Dragon Ball. I'm going to put that in an A. I actually really like the Red Ribbon Army as villains for the original Dragon Ball. The General Blue Saga, though, I'm going to put down in B. I don't think it was as good. It was still good, but not as much so. After that, we have Commander Red. I think that was... I think that and Blue are right around the same area, so I'm going to put them, like, right together here. Next, we have... Fortune Teller Baba. It's long and it's hard to read on my screen. The Fortune Teller Baba saga didn't really do as much for me, so I'm going to put that in C. Tien Shinhan, I'm going to put in A. I think that was a good one. King Piccolo is the peak of original Dragon Ball. Absolutely. It is what original Dragon Ball really strived to be. It is absolutely the peak. The Piccolo Jr. saga, I would put upper B. Because, again, it's good, but it feels like it's just, fallout from the King Piccolo saga. It doesn't feel like it has as much, I don't want to say it doesn't feel like it doesn't have quality at all, but the quality just doesn't feel like it carried over as much to me. And that finishes off the original Dragon Ball run. So for the original Dragon Balls, you can see King Piccolo saga is my favorite, and my least is the Emperor Pilaf saga, which not really a huge surprise there. So next we get into Dragon Ball Z, and we start off with the Raditz saga. The Raditz saga, which a lot of people I noticed kind of just consider part of the Saiyan saga, honestly. But if you want to consider it separately, it's okay, I guess. I'll put it in low B. It's not bad. And I wouldn't really call it meh. I'll put it at the bottom of B tier. It's kind of there, and again, it's starting off the series. It starts Dragon Ball Z, it kicks things off, and so it has a lot of work to do before it can really, get to where it needs to be. And the Saiyan saga, as a, proper saga after that, is really where Dragon Ball Z needed to be at that time. It's like it felt like it was a proper payoff to the setup that had begun. I'm going to put this right under the King Piccolo saga. Next, we had the Namek saga. I'm really confused about this, though. Because there's Namek Saga, Captain Ginyu Saga, and Frieza Saga. Those aren't separate sagas. They're all just the Frieza Saga. Sometimes called just the Namek Saga. But that's all one thing. So I'm just going to count it as one thing here. And again, a lot of people consider the Raditz stuff pretty much just part of the Saiyan Saga. So it's weird that they're kind of separated here. In fact, does that doesn't even say Saiyan Saga. That says Vegeta Saga. This isn't entirely accurate. I think the Dragon Ball ones might be a little off too. Like I think General Blue and Commander Red might have been just part of the Red Ribbon Army saga. But we're just sticking with this. So I'm just gonna use the Frieza saga as a whole. Starting from here, we're just gonna go with that as a whole. So the Frieza saga, a lot of people say is kind of like peak Dragon Ball. I disagree. This is kind of where the meme comes from of like Dragon Ball fights taking forever and all. And I think the Frieza saga very much drags. It drags a lot. And as such, I honestly would only put it in C. And while Frieza's okay as a villain, I don't think he's as good as a lot of people like to say. Next, we have Garlic Jr. This was like just like a little mini thing in there. And this one is pretty much like on the same level as Emperor Pilaf to me. A little better than that, though. I just like Garlic Jr. a little more. But yeah, after that, we have then the issue of like, we have Trunks Saga, which is just part of the Android side. I don't know why it's like being like listed like this. And then there's just the Cell Saga after that. It's like there doesn't need to be three things here. But anyway, the Android Saga. This, in my opinion, is like really kind of where Dragon Ball Z shined. The Android Saga, I would actually put an S tier. And the Cell Saga, I'll include that with it. They kind of go hand in hand, and they're really really where Dragon Ball Z shines, in my opinion, at its best. After that, we have the Otherworld Tournament, which I actually think is the best tournament in all of Dragon Ball Z. I know that might be an unpopular opinion. I actually don't know if it is, but it might be. But I think that is one of the best sagas in Dragon Ball Z. And I think it's filler, too. But I don't care. After that, we get into the Buu Saga. And again, for some reason, this is organized like by all these like sub-sagas, which is just not how Dragon Ball Z is organized. Because like all of this is kind of part of the same thing, but I guess you could consider Great Saiyaman and World Tournament kind of its own thing separate from the rest of the Buu saga. So yeah, we'll count those as separate. But I'm going to have it listed as the Tournament Saga and then the Buu Saga. So the tournament after that, I would say is an A tier, but it's not as high as a lot of the other stuff. I would put this below the Saiyan Saga. And then the Buu Saga, which is the last one in Dragon Ball Z, was my favorite growing up, but nowadays I think is overshadowed by the likes of the Android and Cell sagas. And even I would say by the Otherworld Tournament. So I'm going to put that like right there. Still at the top of A tier. So like I said, after that we are going to go to Dragon Ball GT. This is still part of, this is like the very end of Z. It's still part of the Buu Saga, by the way. Again, it's like, it's trying to like split it up into more arcs than sagas, and it's just weird that way. Yet GT actually seems like it's right. Like, what is going on here? GT is actually separated by its sagas properly. Anyway, so in that relation, the Black Star Dragon saga of GT is probably the worst of GT. And people hate on GT a lot. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as a lot of people say. But the Black Star Dragon saga, I would put as a D. It's probably going to be one of the only Ds in GT. In fact, I think it's the only D in GT for me. Baby Saga, I would say is probably the best of GT. And I would even put that in an A. I actually really enjoyed the Baby Saga. I thought Baby as a villain was honestly fantastic. And just the concepts and executions even were great. I'm actually going to put that just below King Piccolo. Then we have Super 17. Super 17 was good. It wasn't great. It had a lot of great ideas, but didn't execute everything as perfectly as I feel it should have. So I'm going to put Super 17 just below Piccolo Jr. And then we have the Shadow Dragon Saga, which is kind of the payoff to what the Black Star Dragon Balls set up. It's like the Black Star Dragon Ball Saga set up what would be the Shadow Dragon Saga. And the Shadow Dragon Saga is good. Again, not great, but good. I would put it at the top of B tier. So then we get into Super, and this is, in my opinion, where Dragon Ball really started to go downhill. Because you have these first two sagas of Super that are literally just recreations of movies that did the content far better. The God of Destruction Beerus saga and the Golden Frieza saga are just like poor versions of the movies that they're imitating. Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. The movies are far superior in literally every way. And I'm not even going to harp on animation because that, I think, is a stupid argument to make. That's not really an issue that I find with them. But anyways, these I would actually both put in D. And specifically because of how poor they are compared to the movies. The movies are just that drastically better. These felt completely unnecessary. They felt like just wasted time. And really turned me off to Dragon Ball in a lot of ways at that point. Next, we have the Universe 6 saga, which I would just say is meh. Nothing about it really stands out to me. So, and I think the next saga is actually technically part of this one. So I'm going to put this probably right above Garlic Jr. Future Trunks saga, I don't know if that's also part of the same thing or if that's part of the universe survival. Again, some of this kind of blends together and everything, like with Super. It just... And with the way that this is organized on this list, too. I'll put this under... I think under Piccolo Jr. And Universe Survival, I think, is where the tournament comes in and everything. I'm going to put this at the top of the B tier. Mostly because of Caulifla and Kale, who I believe debut in that arc, in that saga, I want to say. So then, as you can see, there's also, like, some other stuff here for Super. There's Broly. I don't think there's a Broly saga, though. I think that's just the movie. And then I think some of this other stuff... yeah, I think these are all just movie stuff after that. Or either way, I'm not going to count the movies again. And if any of that is technically a saga in the series, then I have not seen any of it. So I'm gonna cap that there for what we got. So as you can see, in my opinion, the best of the Dragon Ball series as a whole is the Android Saga and the Cell Saga, kind of like sitting right up there together in S. And the worst, in my opinion, is the Black Star Dragon Saga from GT, which a lot of people will probably agree with. But also down there, also the God of Destruction Beerus and Golden Frieza sagas from Super. So that is my list. I'm sorry for the confusion with how this specific tier list on here was laid out in terms of things, because again, some of this just doesn't make sense to separate, like separating the Frieza saga into like 3 separate sagas, and it's just like, what? Why? And then the Trunks saga is just like, what, 2 episodes that at the beginning of the Android saga where Trunks comes in and, you know, kills Cyborg Frieza? It's like, why are you trying to separate that? That's literally just part of the Android saga. I don't know. But Yeah, that's more of an issue with the tier list. But so there you have it. This is my rankings for all of the Dragon Ball arcs from the original to Super. I would like to hear your opinions. What are your favorite arcs, or even least favorite arcs from the entirety of the Dragon Ball franchise? Also, tell me about your favorite Dragon Ball games, such as Legacy of Goku or the Tenkaichi Budokai games. Tell me about your favorite characters. Just share the love. Share the love for this franchise. Share the love for Dr. Slump, for Sandland, and for everything else that Akira Toriyama had his hand in. Because, again, a legendary name who has inspired and influenced the world and all of media. And his works will forever, forever be a massive, massive name in this world. Thank you, Akira Toriyama, for leaving your imprint on the world. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.